Who
There
we
he is.
don't have is Steve Fauner. Oh, is he there now?
Phil's in.
I was okay that I got kicked out, and I was hoping, just to be able to sit outside and.
But we don't have the Robinsons.
I know. So we don't have the Robinsons yet. We're trying to recreate what we just lost.
I think we should back up and start from 9 a.m. so we make sure we don't miss anything.
No,
the
I'm not.
continuity is important.
I'm not going to have the longest meeting on record, Mayor Harding.
By the way, you're already winning this week. Not gonna lie.
Yeah, you
I know.
jinxed it yesterday, Phil. You jinxed it. Wait, say you had a shorter.
I think that Phil and Glenn are in cahoots. Barb was on a good track there for a while.
For a while. Okay, are we good? Are we live now? Okay. Hi, everybody, and those of you watching in. I apologize. As IT goes, we all got kicked out of the meeting, so I think we've managed to resurrect everybody again. And we're back in, and Mr. Fauner was speaking at the time, but I see Tracy is in, so we'll let Tracy Robinson speak before you continue, Mr. Fauner. Does that make sense? Yep. Okay. Ms. Robinson, if you would just give your address and unmute yourself, it'll be perfect. You're still muted.
Can you hear me?
There you go. Just your name and address, and then you can carry on.
Hi, it's Tracy Robinson at 1129 Whiteside Road, Port Carling, POB 1JO. I actually wasn't prepared to speak today, but I just wanted to let you know that it just feels like it's getting personal, and I don't want it to get personal. We have absolutely no issues with the property owners. Our issues are with the property. We just want to stay within the bylaws and stop asking for more and more exemptions to the rules. The difference in the properties is the frontage. We have 450 feet frontage. We have things that their property just doesn't allow. And we are just really wanting to just they can renovate, absolutely. We have no problem with that. We do have a problem with the size of the place, the height of the place, and the capacity of the place because of the frontage. And although we all coexist here and we all have different issues, we have to maintain what we have and we have to accept what we don't have, right? And I just feel like I don't want to get personal with this, but I kind of have to, because a lot of the things that have been brought up are personal, and we're really trying not to be personal. The proposal before you is just too large for the size of the frontage that they have. It's a large family, which, awesome. It's wonderful. But the cottage was built for 2 people, and then it was modified for 4, and then 6, and then 15. And now they're trying to modify it for 20. And it just doesn't work on that frontage. And that's all we want. Just stay within the bylaws. That's all. And I'll, Stephen will have all of the reasons of why the planning department shouldn't accept this. So I'm going to defer to him. And I just really want you to consider our feelings on this particular post. Okay, that's all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Fauner, I think it's up to you now.
Yes, thank you. Hopefully the outage didn't have anything to do with what I had to say, but anyways, just starting again, I had just started anyways. I think one of the points that needs to be made sort of first and foremost is we don't have a building lot here. This lot is well under 100 feet of frontage, and it's not a building lot. I think it's a pretty simple thing to suggest. Yes, they do have lot area, but as I've said many times, frontage is more the key to density along the waterfront than lot area is. Lot area is a little more secondary. In terms of the application and the information I reviewed in the notice, a couple of things of concern certainly was, the building itself looks to be 3 stories in height. We didn't even have a height that was labeled on the front elevation drawing, which to me is pretty standard when you're requesting a height variance or exemption. The other thing too to note is that as per my site visit earlier this week, is the subject lands are about 5 to 6 feet higher than my client's lands, at least the locations of the dwellings. So not only are they going fairly high with the dwelling, but it's further exacerbated by an increase in height of elevation of the land actually over and above my client's property. The other is it's unclear to me exactly what's being proposed in terms of what is a 2nd-story addition, what is an addition that constitutes 2 stories in total itself, which I believe is the rear portion. And the rear portion, in looking at the drawings, has a proposed window well, so it has a lower level to it as well. My estimate of a floor area, gross floor area of approximately 3,000 square feet is actually probably low because I haven't considered the lower level. So, we've got a considerable size dwelling proposed here. The other is in terms of the property itself and the proposed dwelling. We have a dwelling that goes basically from one side lot line setback to the other. And in fact, the one is deficient because it's currently at 5 feet, but it goes right to the other side. So it's basically the full width of the lot is consumed by this dwelling, save and except for side yard setbacks, of which one is deficient. And there's been no mention at all of trying to improve that setback with this. The proposal has been couched as either an addition. I think it's a rather large addition to just simply call it an addition. I think it's really a redevelopment and will ultimately be a reconstruction of the dwelling probably once they get into the project. I would also point out too that, and it has been noted, but I'll emphasize again that the buffer that's being shown in photographs is on the west side is entirely on my client's property. It's, in my opinion, it's the onus is on the individual on their own property to provide sufficient buffer and not be reliant on neighbors' properties. I've had situations where there's been a dwelling has been 100 feet away, for example, from that side lot line, but my client is responsible for a buffer on their own property. So, and I think that really needs to be considered. And of course, there's been no mention of trying to do any plantings along any side lot line by the proponent. The shape of the property makes it such that this is a bit of an anomaly. It's a challenge. I don't agree with staff when they say that the large lot area is actually an advantage. For planning, I actually think it's a disadvantage because you're funneling development potential and development rights down onto a very small frontage, less than 80 feet of frontage. I did also use, this is something that came up many years ago. I don't know if it's been revisited by the township or not in terms of total floor area or habitable floor area. And it was suggested many years ago that 1,500 square feet per 100 feet of frontage was reasonable. I think now, as I suggested in my letter, 2,000 square feet per 100 feet of frontage would be more reasonable, given what's happened in recent years with increased sizes. So if you were to apply that in this case, then you'd end up with 1,590 square feet as your total habitable area on 79.5 feet of frontage. So just a comparison. I know it's not a bylaw requirement, but it is a comparison. And again, I think the way the proposal has been proposed currently, it should be denied or given certainly the applicants a possibility to reduce the proposal. So those are my submissions, and I'm here to answer any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to turn this back over to committee now. Questions, committee comments, and Councillor Nishikawa, I know you said you have to leave shortly. I'd like to give you the first opportunity if you have any comments on this. If you don't, that's fine, but.
Well, thank you. My first comments were primarily, I agree with, I agree with what Mr. Fawner had brought forward. It is a very small lot, the frontage. I have to recognize that. And this is on a large body of water. We have talked about this for many, many years, about these small lots. The redevelopment of the lot, I was actually quite surprised at the size of the redevelopment, and felt that there was an opportunity to make that a little more manageable, and perhaps even addressing the height concerns. Sometimes that's as easy as taking the pitch down on the roof. So, you know, the difference between a 10-12 pitch and a 12-12 pitch is that quite often 4 feet of height. Somebody else do the math. But I will say that in the years ago when we used to we didn't have heights over 30 feet. It was well managed, and that's where when I say going from a 10-12 to a 12-12 to a 10-12 makes quite a difference. I can't support the application the way that it is. I do see that there could be an opportunity to look at the overall mass of the building that might be more manageable with the side lot lines and the vegetation that's required as well. I just don't know where it's going to go from there.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Jaglowitz.
Thank you, Chair. I have a question for Mr. Muntz, and I see he's put his hand up anyway. Mr. Muntz, your clients are asking for 2 exemptions. One, to be able to expand the building on a undersized lot. There's been some statement that possibly staff might have alluded that was possible in a previous application. But setting that aside for a minute, you're also asking for a second exemption, which is a reduced front yard setback for a second story addition to a dwelling. So we've got an undersized lot. We've already got a large building on it, and you want that exemption. So my question to you is, could you accommodate what your clients want to do if without that second exemption?
Thank you. Mr. Muntz?
Yes, thank you, Councillor Jaglowitz. Happy to answer your question. Could staff share page 1 of my PDF again, please? And sort of, this is what I kind of wanted to clarify as well, just for the height.
Give us a minute, it's coming.
Yeah, no problem. So the relief request for the height is simply, if you look at the northwest corner where I have the hatch, that small section is the only area that we're asking the relief request for that height. If the structure was behind that line, that relief request wouldn't be required. Now, it is possible to design around that, but we do think this does provide a more balanced appearance with what we were proposing. And again, this is a minor, we feel it's a minor relief request just for that small area that's beyond the 50-foot setback. And just to clarify, that area past the 50-foot setback is only 36 square feet beyond there. So yes, my answer to you, Councillor Jaglowitz, it is possible to alter that to not be within that 50-foot setback, but it is our opinion that is rather minor to go back to the drawing board to do that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jaglowitz. You're good. Mayor Harding?
Thank you. And I appreciate that it's an undersized lot. There's a lot of people who do have some undersized lots, and it's difficult to get stuck. And sometimes we do need an extra bedroom or something along the way. So I'm sympathetic to that cause. This is a significant expansion. I do realize that. I guess what I'm not seeing in this is what I'll call a net bettering of the property. We know that on, I'm going to guess the eastern side, whatever, we're only 5.3 feet from the property line. With this extension of renovation, adding a second floor, we could probably just as easily chop off 5 feet of the building and make that side yard setback a little bit better. On the second floor above the existing cottage, you know, if it came in just about 10% smaller, we'd probably eliminate the need for the height exemption in that front section. I think, you know, what I've heard a lot of from the neighbors is they want to be good neighbors and they appreciate it. They're just hearing a little too much development, too over the top, pushing to sort of maximum where they can. And I guess I'd be a little bit more sympathetic right now if you know, the sides of the upper level could sort of shrink in maybe an next 10%. Maybe the height could kind of come down to try and fit with an undersized development lot a little bit more. And if voluntarily we could net better, what I'll call on that one side that's only at 8 feet or 5.3 feet from the side lot line and get to a 15-foot side yard setback, I think then we end up in a much better development on the lot and better respective of the neighbors. So I'm not sure whether, Mr. Munch, you can address any of those or would be willing to sort of redesign. I'm happy to move it forward, taking out or with noting those changes.
Mr. Muntz?
Yeah, I mean, I mean, just to point out, like, I think we're at a bit of a disadvantage just given the grading of the site itself and the fact that it does have a walkout basement. I mean, reducing the height like would be as simple as raising the grade at the shoreline to reduce that height. But I mean, we're not going to go down that path. And I think there is opportunity in terms of height. I mean, we aren't at the max height technically. I mean, our height is at 33 feet. We're at 35 feet. I mean, we have the basement's only an 8-foot basement. The main level is an 8-foot basement. The upper level, the main level is 8 feet. The upper level is 8 feet. We're not, you know, we're not stretching what we're asking for in terms of height. I suppose I don't want to speak on behalf of my client, but I guess if committee or council, would require it, I think there could be possibilities to improve the width, to perhaps bring it in, but I guess I would like to hear their input on that.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Kelly, would you mind just muting yourself? Thank you. So can I get Mr. McCassin back on here? I know you're here somewhere. There you are. So would you be willing to entertain the changes that the mayor has spoken about? And you know, you can think about it, but would you be willing to entertain it?
Yeah, so I think it is, again, if I could ask the staff to pull back up page 1 of the presentation that Mr. Muntz put out. He does have the dotted line in there because I know Mayor Harding had made a reference to addressing the setback to 15 feet. So can everyone see my cursor, or is that the staff that controls this document?
You won't be able to use your cursor now.
So on the left side, you can see the dotted line right where the green and the red meet, and that dotted line runs north to south. So that's the 15-foot setback. That would require us to demolish that entire side of the house. That area is not as of right now, that's existing. It's the existing dwelling. And it would distort it would distort the symmetry of the house. So you can see what, if we did address it to a 15-foot setback, everything to the left of that dotted line running north to south would be removed, if I'm understanding Mayor Harding's suggestion.
If I can just have a supplemental
Sorry.
comment, Madam
Yes.
Chair.
Yes.
Thank you. And I think the simple comment would be, I appreciated it changes the symmetry of the house, but number one, if you were to reduce that side and yes, chop off, I mean, it's just as easy to chop off as build a whole new addition and second story. So if you were to remove that side yard, you would be 15 feet and you could realign the upper level, and you wouldn't be over the 200-foot lot if you move the upper level over or just even reduced it slightly 10%. It's a little bit of a change in your plans and your drawings. I'm not sure whatever, but I think it net betters the property. And that's what I'm really looking for when I decide to give someone permission to do something out of our bylaws. Where can we better the property? And that side yard setback is the one that's sort of glaring at me as an easy fix and an easy win to help in this entire development.
Okay, thank you. And I'm going to go on to Councillor Zavitz. Would you let Councillor Nishikawa go before you, just because I believe she's leaving now? Councillor Nishikawa? Thank you, Councillor Zavitz.
Thank you, and he's always a gentleman. Anyhow, what I'm hearing is that, or what I was suggesting more or less, and as well as the mayor, is that this has to go back to the drawing board. What I thought I heard from the applicant's agent and the applicant is that they don't want to do that. And if that's the case, I'm ready to vote now. But it wouldn't be positive, I will say. So I would suggest that an offer could be made by yourself, Chair Bridgman, that a deferral be made available and something more minimal. I think the discussion has taken us completely to, from what I've heard from other councillors, that this is not acceptable the way it is. And unless we vote this down today, which is not going to be a good thing for the applicants, that we actually do need to defer it to that something, because I absolutely look at this particular plan and see, wow, there's so many ways that we could have improved the situation. And, you know, we talked about 2 and 3 feet here, 2 and 3 feet, and especially 3 feet in height makes a big difference for your neighboring property owner. So there's other ways that things can be mitigated, and I hope that that opportunity is taken. Sorry.
It's okay. Thank you. Councillor Zavitz?
Thank you, Chair Bridgman. Okay, so I will not be able to support this any further than I could never support beyond what I find it interesting, and it's certainly perhaps more to staff than anything. We're not starting with a blank slate. If we looked at the property that's there right now, and I asked you, what are these people allowed to build? You know, within our current scenario, without anything new coming forward. I don't want to even entertain anything extra, because that front lake frontage is so small, and I don't even want to talk about it anymore. But I can tell you that I would not support anything that would be beyond what the township, you know, here we are, the township staff are saying, yeah, this, you know, we have no objections. Really? You know, we have no objections to us considering the expansion, which is above and beyond what they're allowed. Can staff, through you, Chair, can staff tell me in 2 minutes or less what these people are allowed based on the existing footprint?
I'm sure they can, Councillor Zavitz. And I believe it is Mr. Soya. Mr. Soya?
You, Madam Chair. So currently there's the two exemptions, right? So we have the undersized lot, which right off the bat requires an exemption for an expansion to occur. And in this instance, because as we've discussed, a portion of that is just past that 50-foot mark, they need another exemption for that as well. And in this instance, I mean, the way that staff have viewed this in some respects is based on the fact that that second story for which they need that, for which they're increasing in height, does satisfy those side yard setbacks. And the applicant's intention has been to leave a large portion of that existing structure at the same height, and in order to satisfy those side yard setbacks. And also that front area that has the diagonal hatching on it, that area at one point they were looking at maybe raising that higher as well, and they reduced the height of that in order to be within what's permitted in the bylaw, which is 120% increase over what is existing. And as you'll notice, there's also an addition to the sun deck, which was also being in correspondence with the applicant, has been reduced in size to only to not need an exemption specifically for the size of the enlargement of the sun deck as well. So there's been some discussion with the applicants leading up to the application going forward, and there's been some reductions made there, and they felt confident going forward with what's before you today. And staff did also note on site that there was considerable improvements that could be made in terms of buffering from the water's edge, and improvements in that regard through the use of site plan control. And
did that answer your question, Councillor Zavitz? Follow up?
Thank you. Supplementary, I suppose, maybe more statement than thank you, Sam, for that. You know, all a year about buffering, all the trees in the world aren't going to solve this problem. This is a completely a challenge based on the interest in. I'm not even going to say overbuilding, but this building is massive. And I could never look at these tax-paying constituents living beside it and say that I helped them, I empowered them to do any more than have what their rights are. So I won't be supporting anything more than whatever their actual right is at this point. I would never grant any exemption whatsoever, personally. And I would certainly suggest that we should have a deferment on this, where they could go back and I don't know, take another kick of the cat. I think, to the words of the mayor and Councillor Nishikawa, this is not ready to go in the oven yet. I don't believe. Thank you.
So clarification, Mr. Soya, if there are no exemptions, this is an undersized lot, so there can be nothing done to this lot in terms of increasing floor area. Am I not correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Sorry, to answer your question, Madam Chair, if there is to be a second story added to this dwelling, and increase in size like they're suggesting, or even a reduced proposal, they would still need an exemption to the minimum lot size requirement.
I hope that helps clarify it for you, Councillor Zavitz. Okay, good. Councillor Edwards?
Yes, thank you very much. I'm in support of actually deferring this, but I would like to mention that, like, the two exemptions that we're looking at is a 6 foot from 50 feet a 50-foot setback to 44. And of course, the width of the lot, which we can't do anything about. When you look at page 216, the second story addition is 50 feet from the water. If you see it on the left-hand side, it's about 44, but that's coming across the lot line. If you take it directly from the shore, is probably over 50 feet. They're 15 feet from the side lot line with the addition. The 5'3" is already existing. If they're not taking it down and rebuilding, it's grandfathered in. So what we're looking at really is the second story. And that, I think we're in that getting a little confused on this here, because what we're looking at is the second story on an undersized lot, period. And you're asking for 6 feet. And as I said, it's about 39 square feet on the one edge. And that, I'd like the committee to realize that when we do defer this and they do come back. Yes, they can maybe make some actual improvements on it, but the existing house is 5'3" from the side lot line. That's not changing. It's the second story addition only that we're looking at. And I think we should be just looking at what they're asking for. Thank you.
I see Mr. McCaskill would like to speak, and can we bring in Mr. Marshall? I will allow him to have one comment when he comes in. Mr. McCaskill. You're on mute. You're on mute.
My apologies. Thank you, Madam Chairman. We did have discussion with the staff about the 44 versus 50-foot issue that Councillor Edwards just addressed. We are willing to work with the staff, with the committee on that. We are willing to go to the 50-foot setback. What we are looking for, right, so that would take it from 2 exemptions down to 1 in just the second story. We're absolutely willing to do that. What we want to ask the committee for, to make this a beneficial exercise for everybody, so we are not coming back and banging our heads against the wall, is what else, if anything, is the committee looking for on the one exemption that would remain.
Okay, fair enough. Councillor Jaglowitz.
Thank you, Chair Richmond. I'm going to disagree with one of the previous councillors. I think that the applicant has no rights. They're asking for rights to be given. Here's my suggestion to you, okay? And I think it's the best one. I think you should ask for a deferral today. And I think you should meet with your neighbors with your plans. And I'm not saying you have to do what they say, but you should see if you can work out a compromise to bring the building down a little bit in size, something that they maybe could hold their nose in support, and then come back next meeting. And I think you'll get a better look at it. That's my take. If you don't do that, I'll likely vote against this today. Thank you.
So, Mr. McCaskill, I think that is the feeling of this committee, that we would like to defer this, and you can work with your neighbors on some of these issues and bring it back to us at that point.
Can I speak, Madam Chairman?
Oh, sorry. Yes, Mr. Marshall. If you've got anything new to add, that'd be great.
I do actually, and thank you, Madam Chair, and committee members, councilmen, council persons. First off, Chairman Bridgman, I sent an email 10 days ago or so expressing some concerns, and to a few people. I do very much appreciate your response to my emails. It's very important as taxpayers to be able to communicate with your council members and officials, and I appreciate the response. So that's my first comment. Secondly, I'm not a neighboring, I'm sorry, my address is 61160 Whiteside Road. So I'm not a true neighbor next door. I'm down the road a little bit. And I really want to just emphasize what I believe are the fundamental principles that we are entertaining here and being asked for. And Mr. McCaskill actually referenced the report from, I think it's Mr. List, I can't remember the exact name, but we are surrounded by small properties with small buildings and small dwellings on them in this neighborhood. And it is a character of the neighborhood. And my point is that if we continually allow for exemptions to the existing bylaws, everybody who's on a small property with a small building is going to come and ask for redevelopment. And I think that is against what the intention of the original bylaws are. Let's be honest. And I don't want to make this personal because I don't know the individuals involved at all on either side or the applicant. It's an 80-foot frontage, period. It already is non-conforming if you apply today's bylaws. 2 years ago, when the application came forward, there was also reference to the boat port requiring an exemption, which is larger than is allowed under the existing bylaws. And they were looking for an exemption to that. That's not even been referenced here. So there's multiple exemptions against the bylaws. How can the council and the committee allow this to go forward as proposed? And I agree, there needs to be perhaps more dialogue and certainly another resubmission of something that is more in keeping with the original bylaws, the intent of what we're trying to protect here, which is our environment. This is going to stress 79.5 feet of frontage. And again, if the council approves this in any way, shape, or form that is anywhere close to what's being proposed, you are setting a precedent for every property owner that has a smaller than allowed frontage to apply. And how can you say no to them when you say yes to this? As a property owner, as a taxpayer, as a concerned citizen and environmentalist, I cannot understand why we are considering something of this size to be exempt from, I think, which are very reasonable bylaws, and a reasonable exemption on something that's reasonable, I can consider, but this is well beyond that. And I just can't express that any stronger. I really want the council, please, the bylaws are in place for a reason. There is a process to allow for exemptions that make sense, but this does not make sense. And I'm sorry to the McCaskins. I know they've been at this for a couple of years, but you're asking for something that is so far outside the existing bylaws. It takes time and energy and real clear thinking. Let's not lose sight of the fundamentals we're trying to protect here, which is the environment and the planning and a reasonable development of our district and municipality. Please, that's all I need to say. Thank you so much. I appreciate the time.
Thank you, Mr. Marshall. I'm going to stay within committee here, Mr. Muntz. I believe that we've heard a lot from everybody, and I'm going to try and move it along here. You cannot move a video? Oh, sorry. I've got another notice on my screen. I thought we were dropping again here. So committee, I don't even feel that we can give direction here from what I'm hearing. We have some people who don't want to see anything change, and we have some who would like to have it smaller. So I'm just going to try to get a sense here from Mayor Harding's comments that you come into compliance on the side setback and it's smaller up top. Is that something that people could support? Okay. Well, I know, Councillor Zavitz, you're probably not going to support this, but I'm just trying to get a sense of if there is something from this committee that we can give direction on, because you can't just send them away without direction. Mayor Harding?
Thank you. I guess for me, and I appreciate the last speaker's comments, And I do apologize. I did not respond to your email. I thought there were more rhetorical questions in there to make us think as we go through today. So I've accepted it that way. You know, the reality is, if this was a 79-foot lot without a building, we would not turn it into a building lot. But there exists a building on the property today, and we all have been able to live with that. I think the fundamental reality for me is that, generally speaking, most properties should be able to allow some form of expansion relative. So the question of, do we allow some expansion or not, is the only question about an undersized. Do we consider this a building lot? Then the next question, how much expansion do we allow? What's going on, I think, around the table to me is the amount of expansion might be a little bit aggressive relative to an understated building lot. For me in particular, again, I would like to see some of the other encroachments made better, and that be the side yard setback on the one side if possible. I think Councillor Nishikawa said it as well, that if we could slowly reduce the height of the building and move some things back a little bit, just make everything slightly smaller. I know we all want more. I think it might be much more palatable that talks about more of a minor expansion versus a significant major expansion. And that I would be of support of as it was to move forward. I'll leave it, I think the applicant and the McCaskins and Mr. Musk and Mansouri can figure out where they want to go, but I'm in support of a deferral and let them figure out where they need to make some changes, listening to this committee.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Edwards.
Thank you. I would just support a deferral at this time and let them maybe talk to their neighbors. As far as the 5'3" setback, if it's existing now, it was existing when it was built, and that I wouldn't make them rip the building down. If it was a complete rebuild, then that is different. And that, but if they're leaving it there and not putting a second story on it, I would not ask them to rip something down that they already have. Thank you.
Councillor Zabitz.
Thank you, and through you, of course. I obviously a lot of different attitudes and opinions. I guess I'm just going to stick real hard with my idea that, I think they don't even need to be in front of our committee. They could easily just create a plan of redevelopment for the property, go into the township, get a building permit and build it. I'm not going to support anything that gives them more rights than personally in this case that I have to. And I think some of the things we're talking about are red herrings. I really do think they are. I don't believe these people could ever get with their neighbors and come up with a group plan for this place. I just don't think that is just absolutely never going to happen. I can't imagine it. Why would we? That's not even done in our society. What I would suggest they do is not come back here. And I would suggest they go to planning with or go to the building department with a plan that'll get them whatever they're allowed is what they're allowed. And they can redevelop to that scale. It's this bigger scale that's causing all this grief and concern. So thank you for that.
Councillor Zabitz, it's an undersized lot. They can't get a building permit unless we approve it. That's why you need to come here for that. So Councillor Hayes?
That's my point, Chair. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councillor Hayes?
Yeah, thank you. Through you. There are two proposed expansions other than the deck, and one is over the existing cottage, and the other one is a proposed brand new expansion. And I think that I'm of the mind that I could support either the expansion towards the road without a second story and no second story over the existing cottage, or no expansion and only the second story over the existing cottage, because that would not change the footprint and would increase it. I would agree with Councillor Nishikawa that there is a way to make the height a little bit lower, so it would be less intrusive to the neighbors. but that's what I would be looking at, because that is, with the amount of square footage that they're adding, that is a rather robust expansion.
Good term. Councillor Jaglowitz.
Thank you. I'll be brief. I think if we defer this, we're going to be back at it a month from now. All the parties are going to be back, and therefore I think it's key that the applicants meet with the neighbors. As I said, they don't have to. The neighbors can't tell them what they can build, but try to work out something that can be supported. If not, I suspect we'll be forced to make a decision, and there's a good likelihood that decision may end up at LPAT. And I know people don't like me saying that, but I think it's in everybody's best interest that there be something worked out with the neighbors. I agree that people should have a right to some expansion, and I agree that that's why we have exemptions. But this is pushing the limit in my mind. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to take Councillor Kelly, and then I'm going to ask for, I think a deferral is what we're looking for, but Councillor Kelly?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and through you. First of all, just a couple of thoughts, and I don't want to echo what Councillor Jaglowitz just said, but to a certain degree, I'm with him. A couple of thoughts. I don't deal well in the hypothetical of what we would approve. I have no idea what we would approve, but I can tell you that a good start would be had if the applicant got with the neighbors and worked hard to at least understand the concerns on either side of the border, on either side of the line, and tried to come up with some sort of a proposal or compromise that maybe makes both of them a little bit uncomfortable instead of one of them a whole lot uncomfortable. I'm not here to lecture, but in my experience, being on a relatively small lot, too close to my neighbors on one side, I would, part of the joy of cottaging is the harmony and the relationship with the neighbors and fitting into the neighborhood. And I think it's truly important to try to find a way to work that out. We'll be side by side with each other in awful close proximity for a long time to come. So having us approve something getting jammed down other people's throats is not a solution as far as I'm concerned. In terms of what needs to get done, again, I'm not going to prescribe lower roof lines or this, that, or the other, but this thing is massive. This thing strikes me from the views that we've seen as really just obnoxiously large, given the circumstance of the lot and the location of the neighbors. And the last thing I want to say, and I just want to echo what Mr. Marshall said a few minutes ago, doesn't really matter what the neighbors come up with. It doesn't really matter what we all would like to see sitting there at the end of the day. We have to make a decision based on an undersized building lot and the impact that anything that happens on that lot is going to have on the environment. That's going to override neighborly consent and everything else. So I think a deferral is important. I think some hard work behind the scenes to come back with some sort of compromise is important. And I think we're going to need to understand why any exception to the bylaws, the way they're currently drafted, should be made, given that on a 79-foot piece of property, any kind of growth is going to be a huge hit to the local environment, the water and the trees and the wildlife. So good luck and thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kelly. And I, as chair, to wait till the end to make my comments. I know I agree that it's too big. It's too massive on the lot. I believe it's too high at this point, but I must admit with Councillor Hayes, I think the original, if it stays within the original footprint, even if it goes up a second floor, I could probably live with that, but we need to see what that looks like. So I don't know, Mr. Muntz, or I'm going to suggest a deferral. Mr. Muntz, would you like to answer that, or would the McCaskins like to answer that?
I guess at this time, yeah, if the McCaskins are available still, I'd like to leave it up to them to make that decision.
Okay, all right, Mr. McCaskin.
Madam Chair, with all of these comments here, obviously it's a lot for us to take in. I'm not in a position right now to make a, or we are not in a definitive position to say anything in terms of how we want to try to resolve this. One thing I do want to say, just for the committee's knowledge, is we have made many attempts to talk with our neighbors, particularly the Jones, who we talked to many times, and they had given us their support. So we will continue, and we will. I think it's very important that all three of us do sit down and talk. We have tried to, and what the response we've heard is no to second story, no to second story. So that's for us to discuss further. I not understanding the procedural mechanism there. I think that a deferral probably makes sense right now, and we would talk with the neighbors, come back, and try to come up with some type of compromise.
Well, Mr. McCaskill, you don't want us to vote on this today. You know, I think you're generally understanding that wouldn't be to your benefit. So a deferral would definitely be, and I believe if I could sort of, it's too big. What you've got is just too big for the size of your property. And so just take that general away from us, and then you can work with your neighbors too.
Very good.
Okay, so we have a deferral at the moment, committee. All right, thank you, everyone. 21, 22. I think we're almost at 2 hours now. Oh, Councillor Jaglowitz.
Yes, Chair. I just wanted to talk about the timing. If you had a minute, I have kind of an issue that I should be leaving around 4:30. I just wondered how you see it going. I would like to be around for 7B. How much longer do you see this going for?
That's always the $64 million question, Councillor Jaglowitz.
We've already lost one councillor. I don't know how many others are in the same boat.
Well, no one ever knows how long planning is going to take, to be honest with you. So I don't foresee that we're going to have a long time on these next ones. So if you have to leave, what did you say, 4:30?
Yeah, 4:30-ish, but at least if you see it getting to 4 o'clock or something, at least deal with 7B if you don't mind.
Boy, I sure hope we're there by then, for sure. But let's just take a quick comfort break and just 10 minutes, and then hopefully we can wrap everything up after that. Mute. Okay, let's try that again. Everybody ready to go again? Okay, I believe we have Miss Darling with us now, and welcome, Kristen. I think this is your first day with this committee, so welcome to the township, and we look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you, Chair Bridgman. The next application to be heard is zoning bylaw amendment application ZBA 1321, bylaw 2021-39 in the name of Jewett. The subject lands are known municipally as 6 Island M33, which is Shaw Island. I would direct the committee's attention to the submitted sketch and site plan beginning on page 243 of the agenda package. The purpose and the effect of the applications is summarized as follows. A zoning bylaw amendment application has been submitted to rezone waterfront lot known municipally as 6 Island M33 Shaw Island from waterfront residential narrow water body restricted water body WR5-7R to waterfront residential narrow water body WR5-7. This lot contains a 2-story dwelling, 2 single-story sleeping cabins, a single-story boathouse under construction with associated docks and an additional separate dock. The purpose of the proposed bylaw is also to provide an exemption to the maximum permitted length of 50 feet for a boathouse. The proposed boathouse is to be 53.5 feet in length. The purpose of the proposed bylaw is also to provide an exemption from the maximum permitted cumulative width of 16%, which is 56.2 feet for a single-story boathouse. The proposed boathouse cumulative width is to be 17%, which is 59.5 feet. In summary, the zoning bylaw amendment application will have the effect of rezoning to remove the restricted water body classification and to provide exemptions from boathouse length and width to permit a longer and wider boathouse than otherwise permitted. Notice of this public meeting under the Planning Act was circulated 21 days in advance and 3 submissions have been received to date. The first submission is by the Community and Planning Services Department for the District of Municipality of Muskoka. District staff have no objections. That is signed by Emily Crowder, District Planner. The second submission is by Nick Snyder, the Township's Chief Building Official, and he advised that he has no objections. And the third submission was by Tim Sopko, the Township's Public Works Technician, and he advised that he has no objections. I prepared a detailed planning report for the committee's consideration. We have no concerns with this application. I have no further comments at this time and would be happy to assist with any questions.
Okay, thank you very much. It's not looking to me like we have anybody waiting. Sorry, who? Oh, Heather? Okay, there she is. Okay, I was looking in the attendees side. So, sorry, Miss Wilson, if you want to unmute yourself and put your camera on. There you are. Okay.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much.
Yeah, please take it away with your name and address first.
Heather Wilson Consulting Services, 1014 Manitoba Street, Bracebridge, Ontario, P1L 0K8. I am here today representing Mr. Graham Jewett in his application, which we originally started with a minor variance, but we realized during that process that there were a couple of issues we needed to address. It was suggested that perhaps this should better go by a zoning bylaw amendment. So that's why we're here today. The reconstruction of the boathouse started, I believe the dock permit was early 2020 or late 2019 to reconstruct the docks. They had been there quite some time, weren't in great shape. And the boathouse was also not in great shape and needed reconstruction. The contractor submitted and was approved the building permits for these structures. The owner then decided he would like to have a sun deck on the one end of the boathouse. Because it's in the restricted area, we knew we couldn't do that and would have to get an exemption. The owner
undertook to have a survey done by an Ontario land surveyor because he didn't feel he was that close, especially from where the sun deck is going to be to the opposite shoreline. And as it turned out, it is much more than 250 feet between the island and the mainland. The length into the water, we found that out after the survey was done. Mr. Hiley actually showed the 50-foot line on his survey. That was built in error. The shoreline is very difficult to measure from. And while the contractor thought he was at 50 feet, turns out he's a few feet over. This was not intentional, it just happened. And I believe it happens quite a bit, especially when constructing in the wintertime, when a lot of the docks do get constructed. So we would appreciate your support in this application. We feel that it really is minor and that the property never should have been included in the restricted water body in the first place. If you have any questions, I'm here to answer them. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I believe that's the only person speaking on this, and so I will turn it over to committee. Committee, any questions, any comments? All right, then seeing none, I'm going to read the motion. Be it resolved, the Planning Committee recommends to Township Council that zoning bylaw amendment application ZBA-13/21, bylaw 2021-039, Jewett roll number 6-27-046 be approved. All in favor? Madam Clerk, I think that's unanimous. Thank you, Ms. Wilson.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Okay. All right, we're going to go on to our site plans now. And I believe, Ms. Walker, you're up again, and this is Hassen and Jeffrey.
Thank you, Chair Bridgman. The next application to be heard is Site Plan Agreement 3321 in the name of Hassen and Jeffrey. The subject property is known municipally as 1004 Elm Street. I would direct committee's attention to the submitted site plan and drawing starting on page 259 of the agenda package. A site plan agreement application has been submitted to permit the construction of a 2.5-story mixed-use building. The first floor will have 900 square feet of restaurant space, more specifically a chocolate shop. The upper levels will consist of 3 one-bedroom, 450 square foot accessory apartment dwellings. The following submissions have been received. The first submission is by Craig Douglas, the District of Muskoka Manager of Development Engineering. The district has provided comments in regard to the servicing, access, and stormwater management of the subject property and hasn't expressed any concerns with the proposal. The second submission is by Tim Sopko, the Township's Public Works Technician. The Public Works Department has requested some additional information from the applicant regarding the stormwater management plan. A condition has been recommended by staff to address these the additional information that this Public Works Department requires. Submissions were also received from a neighbor expressing support for the overall application, but concerns about a large bedrock area to the rear of the property. The applicants are aware of this concern and have since amended their plans accordingly and have reduced the number of parking spaces and opted to submit a cash in lieu of parking application. Staff have prepared a detailed report for committee's consideration. Staff are recommending that SPA 3321 be approved, subject to the following conditions. 1, that a satisfactory securities be submitted for stormwater management, grading works, and landscaping works. 2, the stormwater management plan be updated to the satisfaction of the Township's Public Works Department. 3, that it be demonstrated that any exterior lighting fixtures will be dark sky compliant and compliant with illumination requirements. 4, that the applicant obtain council approval to provide payment in lieu of the required parking in the amount prescribed for the relief of 5 required spaces, and that a landscaping plan be provided to the satisfaction of the township. And staff are recommending approval of the cash in lieu of parking application for the 5 spaces that have been submitted. I have no further comments and I'm happy to answer any questions from committee. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Walker. Okay, I believe we have Miss Ledger here to speak on behalf of this.
We do.
We do. Where did I see it? There you are. Hard to find these things. Oh, welcome. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Bridgman, and good afternoon to Planning Committee. Terry Ledger, 167 Medora Street, Port Carling, Ontario, P0B1J0. So it's my pleasure to act as agent on behalf of this, a chocolate shop, which is pretty exciting for me personally, but also I think a good addition to Bala. And also along with that, 3 single bedroom apartments, which is direly needed, I would say. And we hope to have those as affordable housing, which will come later once rental agreements are done, etc. So hopefully we'll be back to that. We did have some site adjustments, which is why the site plan or the stormwater management plan needs to be revised, which we're well aware of. And that was the neighbor's concern regarding the bedrock and having to do blasting, and the owners are happy not to do blasting as well. So I think the cash in lieu works well in this particular case. The owners were here for the 11:30 meeting, but they had to go back to work. So I wondered if I could just, he sent me a short email that I could read on their behalf, if that's thank you. So I, Perry Hassen, and have been a lifelong cottager in Bala with family property right in town at Muskoka Road 38 and Highway 169. Our family has owned our Bala property since 1960. Bala holds a special place in our hearts. Now a full-time resident and the property owner, along with Jim Jeffrey, we would like to invest in the town by opening our own business that serves the local community and is a welcome new addition to the existing commercial core. We're excited to launch our Cacao Boys chocolate shop. Our vision is to create not just a retail store that is a chocolate shop, but rather a chocolate lover's experience. Handmade artisanal chocolate made on site will inspire and delight visitors. The focus is on quality chocolate with creative designs and seasonal offerings. We also anticipate it will be a great attraction as part of the annual Cranberry Festival. The wonderful building design keeps in character with the rest of the town and includes 3 units for much needed affordable housing. The location of this new build also helps connect the commercial core, which will hopefully benefit the neighboring retail establishments that may seem detached from others closer to the center of town. We hope to have your support in making this new venture a reality. That's from Perry Hassen. So I'm here to answer any questions or concerns.
Okay, thank you. Committee, any?
James.
Oh, who's in the waiting room? James Jeffrey is in the waiting room.
Oh, good.
Ledger. So why don't we bring him in before I get to you, Councillor Zavitz? Let's let him speak. Oh. Well, I'm not sure if we've made the trek across from attendee to panelist yet. Okay, so maybe Councillor Zavitz, to keep this going, let's hear from you right now.
In the interest of keeping it going, I think this is incredible, Terry. What an incredible effort! It's so good for Bala, so good for the township. Absolutely applaud this. And I think if maybe I may be mistaken, you could perhaps clarify. Would this be the first new commercial building erected in Bala in like 25 years? I don't know, but
Yeah.
An awfully long time. And wow. Much deserved, although I understand there's residences above, and that's even better. So, wow, I'm going to vote for this twice. Thank you so much.
Okay, so I'm not sure we can bring Mr. Jeffrey over, but my sense is that we're not going to have a lot of questions on this. And so unless somebody wants to really jump in right now, I'm simply going to read the motion. Okay, moved by Councillor Kelly, seconded by Councillor Mazan. Be it resolved that Planning Committee recommends to Township Council that site plan application SPA-33/21 Hassen and Jeffrey, roll number 7-11-018-02, be approved subject to the following conditions. This is okay, I need to change the seconder because I don't see Counselor. There she is. Timely. Okay. That satisfactory securities are be submitted for stormwater management, grading works, and landscaping works. That the stormwater management plan be updated to the satisfaction of the township's public works department. That it be demonstrated that any exterior lighting fixtures will be dark sky compliant and compliant with illumination requirements. That the applicant obtain council approval to provide payment in lieu of required parking in the amount prescribed for relief for 5 required spaces, and that a landscaping plan be provided to the satisfaction of the township. Any discussion? All in favor? And that carries unanimously. Thank you. You're right, Councillor Zavitt. This is pretty exciting. So look forward to spending my good money there. It'll be great.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
With council, I just want to know how many people are looking forward to the Oompa Loompas working in the chocolate factory. Terry gets it. I'm not sure who else gets it. Susan gets it.
Okay, maybe another time we'll get into that. All right. So, so our next is site plan, or no, I'm sorry, it's the return of securities for Lakeside or Legacy Cottages. And I believe, Stefan, Mr. Szczerbak, you are here. First, we're going to have Mr. Sharp introduce it.
Thank you, Chair Bridgman. The next matter to be heard is a request by TRG-KFH Lakeside Incorporated for a partial refund of securities held in relation to completed stormwater management and sanitary works under site plan agreement SPA-96/16. I prepared a detailed report for committee's consideration. I'll just go over a few details to summarize. As part of the process of entering into the agreement, the owner employed consulting engineers to provide cost estimates to complete the installation of stormwater, grading, erosion control, landscaping, and sanitary works on site. The township received a total of $462,065 in securities related to these works, including $50,000 to ensure that a sewage treatment system would be installed on site. Pinestone Engineering has confirmed that stormwater management and sanitary works have been substantially completed and conclude that $193,968 of the held securities can be returned at this time, which represents 90% of the funds held for these works and includes the $50,000 amount being held against the installation of the sewage treatment system. It has been confirmed that this system has been installed and is ready for operations. The remaining securities will be held until the remaining works are completed, including over 215 tree plantings and nearly 400 shrub plantings. Mr. Pink and I would be happy to assist committee with any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stefan, right? Mr. Szczerbak, I think you're here to chat with us about this.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Madam Chair, members of committee. Mr. Sharp, I couldn't have said it better myself. It's good to see that we're saving the best for last today. Mr. Sharp said everything well. We've got letters of completion from Pinestone Engineering, but also from the septic installer Azimuth Environmental, who have essentially certified the works that have been completed that are subject to our request. We believe that the township will continue to be protected to ensure that the rest of the works will be completed. There'll be almost 60% of the total security still in your holdings to ensure that whatever is required moves forward, in addition to the final 10%, which is to be held in the event that there's other works that need to be completed from the stormwater and sanitary. There is a member of the Rosseau group. John I is also available if there's any construction questions. Unfortunately, Mr. Harvey was tied up in a meeting, but he did send us an email, and I believe that there might be a question or a comment in terms of what does it mean if something is substantially complete. And from the engineering world, and again through the security provision, it essentially means that the works can be used for their intended use. So the works that are being, our request is based on, they are working, they're moving forward, and the engineers have provided documentation to certify that's in place. Thank you very much for your time today.
Okay, thank you. I see in our attendees, we do have John. We'll bring him in if we have any questions. Otherwise, he can still hear everything going on. So committee, any comments, any questions? Councillor Jaglowitz?
Yes, thank you, Chair, and thank you for speeding up when we got back from the break. You're moving along quickly. Yes, I was under the impression from Director Pink that there might be someone from Pinestone here that I could ask this question of. I will ask the question then, and hopefully we'll have someone that can answer it. My understanding of security deposits, they're taken, and the purpose of them is to provide the municipality with security that the works will be fully complete. And that I have spoken to someone in this business, and they tell me that it's very unusual to release securities until a certain portion of it or the particular parts you're releasing is 100% complete. That's not unheard of, but in my view, before we release any security for work that's not 100% complete, the township should have a credible estimate of the cost to complete the works for which the deposit was taken. What appears to have happened here, they've taken a percentage and said they believe the work is 90% complete, and they estimated the work to cost so much, so we're releasing 90%. So let's look at the sewage treatment facilities as an example. The security was 50,000. So they're holding back 10,000. Well, we all know that there may be part of a sewage system there, and the report seems to indicate they're ready to test 15 homes, but they're not ready to test the rest. Some homes haven't even been started. So it must be very difficult to establish that it's complete. Now, those sewage works certainly cost more than 50,000. So let's just say the project stopped today and was abandoned. We at the township maybe have to be in a position to finish those works. $5,000 would certainly not complete that sewage work. When we look at the storm sewer works and erosion control, we see the same thing. So what I'm looking for maybe from you, Stefan, or somebody technical, has anyone done a cost to complete the works that you're asking for a release of security on?
Who would like to take that? Stefan, do you want to answer that?
Yes, I would like to just make a point, and perhaps you could let John in just to also just tie into it if you may, and maybe I'll just wait for it to see him so he doesn't lose my train of thought here. Oh, there's John.
Comes.
Good. So just to clarify something, the engineers provided a letter, and the works are complete. They're operational, full stop. I believe it's the township's policy to keep back 10% of the securities in the event that there are some minor things that need to be completed. Let's just say that the grass isn't growing on the septic bed, or let's just say that there's some fencing that is removed and needs to be completed. So this is the 90% release is based on your policy. The works are complete, and they have to be operational from an engineering and a professional standpoint in order to provide the occupancy. So the systems are working. They're not 90% complete. They're not waiting on certain items, and there's no need to provide a cost estimate to say, well, what's it going to cost to finish the 10%? They're essentially complete. And again, that's based on professional letters from professional engineers who stand by their certifications to provide that to you, the municipality, based on your policies and procedures.
Councillor Jaglowitz, a follow-up?
Yes, So you were mentioning the sewage. So the ministry has given their approval. The works have been approved and are complete. And you're saying occupancy permits have been issued by the township. So I'll let you answer that, but also go back to storm sewer works and erosion control. That's complete. The erosion control is complete. The grading hasn't even been done on much of the lots. There are properties there that there's just foundation sitting there. You also talk about an engineer certificate. Yes, there's a letter, but so maybe you could elaborate more on that.
Stu, would you like, I'm John, I'm sorry, I've just got his first name here, to answer any of this?
Yeah, I will to get John, but again, to answer the question, let's not, understanding that, yes, grading needs to be completed, but the storm system, the stormwater pond, that's the focus for the security release. If you look at the detailed analysis, it's documented from Pinestone that shows what has been completed. There are and will be a lot of the final grading and a lot of the final other works that are associated with the landscaping plans that again are in place. And again, you've got over 60% securities to ensure the stuff will be completed.
But Stefan, the engineer just took all of the items and held back 10%. It doesn't show which item is complete or not complete.
They're completed based on your policies. That's 90% in accordance with your policies and procedures because they are complete. You require the whole.
You're saying the storm works in erosion control is complete
for the stormwater for the stormwater ponds and the items that are listed. Yes.
Councillor Jaglowitz?
Yeah, I'm what we have here, and I guess I'd like maybe council to understand, Stefan is a planner. I'm an accountant, okay? You're telling me they're complete. Can we get a technical person to verify that? When I read the staff report, staff said they attended at the site, but everything was covered up. Therefore, they really couldn't see much. I questioned planning staff on this, and the reference was that they would have someone here at the meeting to answer those questions. So is John a technical person?
I believe he's in construction. Stefan, did you say?
Yeah.
Maybe you'd like to answer, John.
Yeah, is John available?
He's here.
Maybe he could identify himself and his background.
Yeah, you'll have to unmute yourself.
There we go.
And if you don't mind, if you've got a video, that would be great.
I'm on my I'm on my phone, unfortunately, and I do travel back and forth to Muskoka, but I am in the city of Toronto. So I've got 22 years experience in the construction development industry in the Greater Toronto area. I have also got my Bachelor of Architectural Technology, so I have technical background on full development. To shed some light, so the systems are 100% operational, and they have been commissioned. So what you're seeing on the site right now, and we have not applied for, is phase 1 of the 15 out of the 43 cottages. We've done substantial landscaping and grading to those areas, and we've done probably 50% of our grading that's needed for the lake view. So we haven't even applied for any of those releases, so that already is done. What is not technically connected are the individual houses to the stub connection, which is 3 feet away from the foundation wall. That is as we build the houses and we backfill, there's a process when we connect the sewer system. But the sewer system and the stormwater management system are 100% certified as operational.
And have they received approval from the ministry?
We have submitted and received, yes.
Okay, and they've inspected and said it's functional.
Yeah, we had a third party through our installers come in and commission it. And we've provided letters as part of our occupancy request for the first 15 houses.
Okay, so you have something from the ministry saying it can be operated.
Yes.
Madam Chair, I believe it's also, I do not know if the ministry actually inspects. I don't think that's part of their jurisdiction. It's up to the technical advisors, Azimuth, to provide an engineered certified certificate to the ministry to say they're operational. So John, yeah, I don't know. And I remember having a discussion with Azimuth that the ministry issued the approvals, and it's up to the technical engineers to ensure that they're operational and go from there.
Right.
Okay, so I'm just going to ask our chief building officer to jump in here because he's turned his light on. Welcome, Mr. Snyder.
Thank you, Chair Bridgman, and through you, I would like to mirror the sentiments expressed by Stefan Szczerbak. My experience in the past has been that the ministry does not issue a certificate, but it is understood that the commissioning by the designing engineer and third parties involved is sufficient to complete the requirements of the ministry. And I'd also like to add that at this point, there have been occupancy inspections conducted at the site, but that occupancy has not been granted for any units.
I have a supplementary
yes,
to Mr.
yes.
Snyder. Thank you. So in your opinion, there's basically two things they're asking. They're saying the sanitary sewer works are 100% complete, and they're saying the storm sewer works and erosion control are 100% complete. Would you agree with that, Mr. Snyder?
Mr. Snyder?
Thank you, and through you. That's not something in terms of sanitary storm that we inspect, or it falls under the purview of the Ontario Building Code or the building department. In regards to the sanitary system, what I've received to date is confirmation that the treatment plant is commissioned and operational. To date, I've not received confirmation of the underground works, water supply, sewage for the site from the engineering.
Right.
Though I don't know that that is something that they're asking for securities back at this time.
Right. It's my understanding that the water system may not be installed, and it's hard to run a sewage system without water. Just another question to you. Are you prepared to issue those occupancy permits? Are they being held up for some reason?
Thank you, and through you again, Chair. I do not know the full extent of the inspections or conditions that may have been observed on site. So at this time, I can't answer that with certainty. If there are conditions above and beyond connections to water and sewer.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll let someone else speak. I'll just close off by saying I suggest we defer this until we have some report from our staff that indicates these are okay to release. It's my understanding that a letter was submitted with some attachments, and based on that, the request was made to submit so I would rather see our staff do a little work to make sure. We don't have a lot of projects like this in our township, and this is one where we just have to be a bit careful, and it's not because of anything, just it's a large project. Anybody that goes there knows the project isn't complete, and so I just think we have to be careful. I don't think we should treat this applicant any different than anyone else, but I would like to see more evidence before we release it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
If I could ask a question before I go to you, Councillor Zavitz gone. I'm going to assume that this is the normal process with the letters that come in. Can somebody help me with that? And I'm sure there's a contract somewhere that stipulates what has to be provided. I need an answer to that, if you don't mind. Mr. Pink, are you the one to answer that?
Thank you, Chair, through you. Yes, I can confirm it's actually embedded in the site plan agreement that's been entered into with the developer, the property owner, and the municipality. Once any works are completed, they do have the ability to request that the township return them in increments. It's not uncommon on large development proposals such as this. Upon receipt of a letter signed by an engineer or the technical qualified professional, we would return those portions of the security. The agreement itself also contains a clause, as Mr. Szczerbak noted, that 10% can be withheld by the township to ensure, for 1 year, to ensure there are no maintenance issues. That's what's being done here. Mr. Szczerbak correctly pointed out, the engineers have certified that this is complete, it's functional. And I think if Councillor Jagowitz is referring perhaps maybe alluding to a peer review, I'm unsure, but I would not say that's something we've done in the past to return securities. The engineers have signed that the works have been completed. If there is a concern regarding the septic or sewage disposal system not functioning, I don't believe it would be really a matter of security. I don't believe they'd be issued occupancy if the sewage system was not capable of supporting the units. I believe the security taken for the sewage disposal system was a unique situation when the site plan was approved. That's the first time I recall the township taking funds for a sewage disposal system. I think it had to do more with the decommissioning of the existing system at the time, which was being pursued. So I hope that helps clarify, Chair Burge.
Thank you, Mr. Pink. It did help. Councillor Kelly.
I think you called on Councillor Zavitz before.
Councillor Zavitz.
Thank you, and through you, and thank you, Councillor Kelly. So it seems to me, as we're discussing securities, the other thing that we have as in our toolbox is a deferment, and I'm not a big fan of that, but in this case, it seems to me, directed to David through you, the chair, would 30 days give us a better sense, get our arms around this thing? I sense through Nick and through you, David, should we be giving up any money at all and for 30 days, and this project has been going on for years? I'd like some peace of mind. I mean, I'm not getting it from what I'm hearing from our staff, although there is a staff report granted. Can you help me with that?
Well, Councillor Zavitz, this has to pass council before the funds would be released. So you're going to have a 30-day wait anyway. And everybody on the screen just froze. So I don't know if you can hear me or not.
I can hear you. I can hear you. And
okay.
Okay. Can hear me now. And if I might, fine for the 30 days, but it comes to planning for a reason, and it sits here for a reason. And I see no urgency in this whatsoever. I hope there isn't an urgency in this. This is a multi-million dollar project, and I don't want to do anything untoward or unorthodox, but I am not getting assurances from our staff that we have our arms around this. Thank you.
Councillor Kelly.
Thank you, and through you, and I'm going to keep it right to the point, because I think between Councillor Jagowitz and Councillor Zavitz, it's maybe been said, a lot of it. I don't see a lot of room for judgment here. This is a black and white issue to me. The funds are being held against a certain set of conditions, and Councillor Jagowitz correctly pointed out, we have listened to a planner and an accountant debate it. We've had some input from somebody named John, who's an engineer. At some point in time, what I'm looking for is the comfort of knowing that someone says the conditions are fulfilled, and it's just a matter of stamping and signing off. I don't really think there's room for any of us to exercise a whole lot of judgment. There's room for us to listen and understand that the money was held against a certain set of conditions. The conditions have now been fulfilled to our satisfaction, and we will bless the return of the funds. I may have heard that from David. David may have clarified that, but to be honest with you, I wasn't 100% sure of that either.
I'm going to ask Director Pink to explain the report that came in. Director Pink.
Thank you, Chair Bridgman. As is noted, again, staff are not engineers. Planning staff certainly are not. I cannot vouch personally that the work's been completed. That's why we require a certification letter from an engineer. You have that in your agenda packages. Mr. Harvey has signed that the works are complete. Again, the report notes that if they're incorrect, they're held liable as they signed that certification. If committee could be more clear as to what additional information or what additional, again, details Mr. Harvey can provide to council to give you comfort that it is complete other than a signed letter, we can certainly work with Mr. Szczerbak to see if they can attend in 30 days time at council to provide that. That can certainly be done, or if committee wishes, it can be deferred. Again, I did ask, presuming that questions may arise as to more details on the engineering works that have been completed. Unfortunately, Mr. Harvey was unable to attend today, but again, hopefully he could attend in 30 days time, either in front of planning committee or council.
Thank you, Mr. Pink. Mayor Harding?
Thank you. And actually, I think Councillor Kelly said it best. There's no room for judgment in this. We have a site plan with this agreement, and we hold them accountable to a site plan. They equally hold us accountable. Incorporated in that site plan is a return of securities when they meet certain criteria. We have, in front of me, I see a report from Pinestone Engineering, and I see one from Azimuth Environmental suggesting that works are done and completed. As our planning staff say, they're not the engineers, but they have done what we have asked them to return securities, a portion thereof. We took in total on the property $750,000. We're going to retain roughly $268,000 because that work has not been returned. Mr. Pink has also said that the engineers, accordingly, if this work is not functioning properly based on those that have signed off, they're then liable. So the township is actually protected. Councillor Zavitz said, what's the issue of 30 days? If I had $460,000 sitting in my bank account or invested, it's a couple $1,000s a month in interest. That's the cost of 30 days. I would want my money back to follow the site plan. The same as each and every one of you, as soon as you've met all the conditions. And again, no room for judgment. This is not our judgment whether it's done or not. The engineers have said, yes, it's done. So I'm in support of passing today a return of these securities.
Thank you, Councillor Jaglowitz.
Yes, thank you for allowing me a final comment. I wrote Mr. Pink a couple days ago regarding this, and what I requested was that the township should have a credible estimate of the cost to complete the works for which the deposit was taken, and that if that deposit, I believe, should come from a third party, and failing that, the deposit should be held until the works are 100% complete. I can't see how stormwater management is complete when the final grading hasn't been done. I can't see how a sewage system can be complete when nothing's hooked up to it. It hasn't run a full test. Complete means it's suitable for 43 houses, okay? So I'm merely, and by the way, council can do, or committee can do what they want, but I will not be supporting the return unless there's some credible estimate of the cost that we would have to pay if the job stopped today. And just to give you an example, if you look at the detail, which you've all got a copy of, because I asked Mr. Pink to send it to you, you will see that for roadworks, okay, the estimate for the roadworks for this complete project is, I think, 100, 200,000. Well, we all know by the grapevine that the new road that was put in cost $500,000. So obviously the estimate was never accurate in the first place. So I just think, to be on the safe side, we shouldn't be giving up our securities till we're 100% comfortable. And thank you very much. I will leave it at that.
Well, Councillor Jaglowitz, we can move it to council and have a discussion at council rather than hold this up. It's just my comment on that. Councillor Edwards?
Yes, thank you very much, Annette Richmond. I agree with the mayor. We do have letters saying it is complete. They are responsible. It is standard in construction to do this, and I would support moving it to council. It still gives us 30 days if there's a problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hayes, and then I think I'm going to read the motion. Councillor Hayes?
Yes, I'm just going to agree with the mayor and Councillor Edwards. We have policies and procedures in place. They're to protect us, and they're also something that we have to live up to. We've received the letters that are saying that it's complete. Now we have to follow through on our end. So I would be supporting this going to council.
Okay, if there aren't any more comments, I am going to read the motion. Moved by Councillor Mazan, seconded by Councillor Ed. Are you okay? Yeah, Susan's there. You're there. Be it resolved, the Planning Committee recommends to Township Council that $193,908 in securities held in relation to the completed stormwater management and sanitary works pursuant to SPA-96/16 TRG-KFH Lakeside Incorporated rolls number 4-14-030 and 4-14-029-03 be returned to the owner. Discussion, all those in favor? You got 7? Yes, okay, that carries. Oh, all opposed, sorry. All opposed? You have it, Madam Clerk? Okay. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Szczerbak. Okay, the next is going to be where's Bryce? There he is. Mr. Sharp, if you could take us through the a great report that you have done. There's a lot of hard work there. Thank you. Please take us through it.
Well, thank you very much, Chair Bridgman. I appreciate that. As per committee's direction in March, I prepared a report on the issue of regulating the use of accessory buildings in the waterfront area. The township has imposed a long-standing limitation on the number of habitable buildings permitted on waterfront residential zone properties to 1 dwelling and 1 sleeping cabin. There's a growing concern among council, committees, and staff about the number of accessory buildings claimed to be used for storage purposes and a potential lack of compliance. These buildings have evolved from small single-room quote-unquote bunkies or converted storage spaces above garages to significantly larger architecturally designed buildings with multiple rooms, bathrooms, and amenity features that are claimed to be used for storage purposes. The increasing illegal use of accessory buildings for living accommodation is becoming a community concern as it increases the intensity of use along the waterfront and has the potential to cause septic capacity issues and adverse impacts to water quality. Given the increasing popularity of what appears to be a growing trend, staff have examined the issue with the intent of identifying alternatives to ensure zoning compliance and of simplifying bylaw enforcement. The recommended approach that has been put forward by staff and is detailed in my report is as follows. The maximum number of accessory buildings should be limited to 2, not including, and I would emphasize that, not including boathouses, sleeping cabins, attached garages, privies, pump houses, saunas, and gazebos. The maximum number of accessory buildings consisting of pump houses, saunas, and gazebos permitted within 66 feet from the high water mark would remain at 2, the same as it is today. Should additional buildings of this type be proposed beyond 66 feet from the high water mark, they should be included in the limitation of 2 permitted accessory buildings. Currently, there is no limit to the size of accessory buildings, save for other restrictions such as lot coverage. Not including, again, I would emphasize that point, not including boathouses, sleeping cabins, attached garages, privies, pump houses, saunas, and gazebos. The maximum permitted combined ground floor area of the two permitted accessory buildings should be 1,000 square feet, unless provisions relating to lot coverage are more restrictive. Not including boathouses, sleeping cabins, and attached garages, both permitted accessory buildings could be limited to a single story only. On a lot where both a detached garage and a sleeping cabin are permitted, and where the sleeping cabin is proposed to be located above the detached garage, the accessory building could be permitted to consist of 2 stories with a maximum permitted height of 22 feet. It is noted that relief from the current height provision of 20 feet is commonly requested and approved by the Committee of Adjustment. Through the suggested change, these applications could be avoided. Page 335 of your agenda package details a number of example scenarios that help demonstrate how these suggestions could be applied in the real world. I will highlight 2 for committee's consideration. A landowner owns a lot on Lake Muskoka with more than 300 feet of lot frontage, and the lot is zoned waterfront residential. This individual is able to construct a dwelling with an attached garage, 2 non-habitable land-based single-story accessory buildings not exceeding a combined ground floor area rather, of 1,000 square feet, a 2-story boathouse with a sleeping cabin not exceeding a floor area of 650 square feet in the upper level, and minor accessory buildings such as, for example, a gazebo and a sauna in compliance with applicable zoning provisions. The second example, a landowner owns a lot on Skeleton Lake and is zoned waterfront residential. This individual is able to construct a dwelling with an attached garage, 2 land-based accessory buildings with a combined ground floor area not exceeding 1,000 square feet, one of which is permitted to be 2 stories with a sleeping cabin not exceeding a floor area of 650 square feet in the upper level, a single-story boathouse, and minor accessory buildings such as, for example, a gazebo and a pump house in compliance with applicable zoning provisions. In conclusion, it's my opinion that a benefit of the recommended approach is that it will provide a landowner with ample flexibility to choose options for development of their lot while allowing the municipality to gain better control over the concerns and of simplifying enforcement. Staff are looking for committee's direction to prepare an amendment to the township's comprehensive zoning bylaw to implement these changes, and I would be happy to assist committee with any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sharp. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to committee. I see that Mayor Harding would like to speak.
Thank you. Thought I would kick this off and stick sort of my stake in the ground a little bit. I agree that we have some people who have abused this with large garages in the back or sheds that may be used for something else. My fear is we are beyond using a sledgehammer to kill a fly. And I think we are putting a number of undue limitations. I'll challenge a little bit. You talk about the township official plan, talking and concern about built form developed does not dominate the natural appearance of a shoreline. I agree 100% with that. And we have dealt with that in our allowing only 1 of 2 accessory buildings, cottage, boathouse, and a pump house or whatever we want in the front area. But the back and behind the property, or let me say at the 200-foot mark, let me be bold, who cares? Nobody can see 200 feet back into the woods. That's not affecting the built form on the waterfront when that property is built back. I am concerned, depending on the size of a lot, and we have some significant acreages, that the accessory building or buildings as such can only equal 1,000 square feet. I have a small personal lot. I'll tell you right now, I have a building permit in for a garage on my back 200 feet that has 0 buildings right now that is in excess of 1,000 feet. It would be a 3% lot coverage. But I need that storage space in a garage. So I'm concerned that we are being too aggressive with the number of limitations depending on the property. I don't disagree that we should be pushing this stuff further from the water and protecting our environment. The other thing that we're not contemplating right now, and if I was to turn my camera around, or many people would turn their cameras around in a Zoom context, I may see the dirty laundry because I'm stuck in a laundry room to have a conversation on Zoom, or I'm stuck in a bedroom and I have clothes on the bed here because I don't have a specific office. I think we might see more applications for people wanting to build quote unquote a bunkie, but an office, which they need some more space and privacy. There's people on the Zoom call I know who struggle with a child in one room and mom and dad in the other room and trying to work at home on Zoom, and you need privacy. Sometimes I need a bit different building to go away and create my home office. And I'm just very, very concerned that in its present form that this is being presented doesn't contemplate lot size, doesn't allow some other flexibility within here. And, you know, again, I appreciate the fact that people are putting beds in bunkie cottages. I can tell you, when I have visited properties to show properties to people, 95% of the properties have some form of a bed in a sleeping cabin or in a bunkie or a shed. I was at a property the other day and literally it's all bed, but so that somebody had another bedroom on their property. And staff know it when we go out and we see that. It's commonplace. Is it adding to the intensity of the waterfront? I don't believe so. I believe kitchens are. I believe when I have full cooking and stove facilities that I can have 3 full families and then I access the water. But because I want to go sleep in my old bedroom so that I don't listen to grandpa snore, then I'm okay to do so in a different building. And I'm very concerned. I would rather, again, lower lot coverage or lower lot coverage on the front 200 feet and then the back 200 feet do something different. You know, we talk about an attached garage. So why is my attached? As soon as I want to detach that garage, I'm now penalized. And, you know, we have some space on many of these properties. It's nice to have my cars parked over here and I walk over to this building and I'm not trying to shoehorn it all in and avoid my side lot lines and everything else. Sometimes attached or detached garages work. So I'll leave those as my comments. I can't support sending this as it is to public.
Councillor Hayes.
Thank you, and through you. I think the mayor has an interesting point, and I'm going to ponder on that. But my suggestion would be when you're looking at boathouses, especially 2-story boathouses, if they have a 650 square foot at the top, that should be included in your amount. If they have the bottom level that is supposed to be for boats filled in, then that should be included as part of a living space, habitable space as well. And that should be considered. That may be one way to at least recognize that people are doing that. And we're not saying that we can't do it, but you have to trade off with something else.
Director Pink would like to speak.
Thank you, Chair Bridgman. Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt the discussion. I think all this feedback is excellent. I'm looking forward to it, but I just did want to clarify a few things. I think, Your Worship, you started off that you feel staff maybe is killing an ant with a sledgehammer here. I think we pride ourselves. We have some very creative architects and planning consultants who certainly find loopholes in our bylaws from time to time. And I think you'll find that staff does not bring amendments to the zoning bylaw each time that arises. However, as you acknowledged yourself, and as I'm sure Councillor Edwards can vouch for, there are constant requests in the township for garages with storage above, where we're aware, as you noted yourself, that 95% of the time they turn into living space. So I think this is an issue that needs to be addressed. Further to Councillor Hayes' question, the other matter that staff did bring forward was in regard to the living space in the lower level of boathouses. That's still a standing open matter. Committee has not still provided direction to staff, and that's a discussion ongoing during the OP review, but that's a little separate than the report Mr. Sharp has prepared here. What I did want to clarify though, just again, certainly if committee wishes to debate the merits of allowing additional bunkies, that's fine. However, the official plan currently is very clear. We allow 1 sleeping cabin and 1 dwelling per lot. The zoning bylaw is very clear. We allow 1 dwelling and 1 sleeping cabin per lot. And that's why staff's brought forward an amendment so that bylaw enforcement staff and planning staff are not spending excessive resources chasing down the complaints every time we get a complaint that these spaces are being lived in. If committee wishes to discuss multiple living spaces on a property, I would recommend that discussion take part as part of the official plan review. The official plan should be amended to allow more living spaces, and then we can amend the zoning bylaw accordingly. But in its current form, we allow one sleeping cabin, and that is an issue. The last point I would make, I think there is some flexibility in regards to the number of sleeping cabins that committee or council may wish to allow on a property. The district official plan is very clear that only one dwelling is allowed on a waterfront property. So I do not believe we're at liberty to amend our official plan or zoning bylaw to allow multiple dwellings. Our hands are a little bit tied there as we must conform to the district policies. But I do believe we have some flexibility with sleeping cabins, and you may see that in an upcoming draft of the official plan, but I believe that's where the discussion should be in that regard. So I hope that provides some clarity to frame the further discussion. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Zavitz.
Well, thank you. And certainly, David, brilliant dissertation. I guess to the mayor's point, I'm blown away by your commentary. And of course, it's firsthand. You're seeing it as you're going around in the business you're in. I would ask Bryce, and with all seriousness, Bryce, where did you get your information for your excellent report? How did you pull that information together? Where did you gather all of that information? Is that time? I'm not going to answer the question. I would love it though if you could.
Take it away, Bryce.
Thank you, Chair Bridgman.
No, I think it's relevant because I think, the guy's sitting here for 10 minutes and he's telling us what we all need to know. And I'm not going to disagree with any of this in front of committee, but I do think that the official plan is what we are banging away at that thing for a month, a year and a half. And this guy's speaking the truth. So, I mean, I'm interested in how this assemblage of information that you just imparted.
Through you, Chair Bridgman, and
yes.
Thank you for your comment, Councillor Zavitz. I would say I'm blessed to be surrounded by excellent people that I work with, including Mr. Pink, who has 15 years of experience here at the township, plus my 6 years of experience working directly with the zoning bylaw and the official plan day in and day out. So you get to know things very well, and I've visited hundreds between Mr. Pinkin and I, probably thousands of properties in the township, and we get a handle on how things are working out there. It's one thing to have provisions on paper, but it's quite another to have that firsthand experience to see how they're being implemented. So I would say, we rely on our experience. Just with respect to a lot of the background information, of course, as planners, we're reviewing applicable policy and legislation. So the Planning Act, the district or the provincial policy statement, district official plan, our own official plan, our zoning bylaw. Mr. Snyder was involved in the preparation of the report just with respect to the Ontario Building Code and some of the issues that he's seeing on his end. Thank you.
Are you good, Councillor Zavitz? A follow-up?
Well, thank you. And again, thank you, Bryce. And for the other staff members, with that kind of a description, it would be hard for me to sit here and actually espouse my own personal views. Because I think, this body of work is large and inclusive. And I think we are well served paying attention to it. I do think that the official plan needs to be inclusive. Of course, and I think that's where a lot of this belongs, as per David. But I'm not going to take create any discrepancies or anything with what you've just said. And I certainly accept your report. Thank you very much for it.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Zavitz. I'm just going to chime in here for a minute. This is one of the biggest complaints I got last summer, and I'm still getting this as one of the biggest complaints. Is these big places that have second homes on the property. And Mayor Harding, you said that 95% don't have it, but the trend is the other way, especially with these new properties going in. So I very much support this. In fact, if you say 1,000 square feet between them isn't enough, that if we're going to put a shed up, perhaps we only allow windows at the very top of the building, so they can't be converted into living quarters. And it's unfortunate, but the ability to enforce this once it's up is very difficult because we can't go on the property and we can't do that. So we have to end up coming up with something else that is going to keep everybody in line. And I don't like having to do it, but I'm more upset with the flagrant disregard. And so I think I like this. We may be able to massage it a bit, but I am in favor of this. And 1,000 square feet is still a fairly big building. So maybe you say you can have 3 buildings, but they have to be 500 square feet each. I don't know what the answer is. All I know is that we have a lot of frustrated constituents out there and trying to solve a problem with it. Councillor Jaglowitz?
Yes, I would like to applaud staff for coming forward with this. I think it's good work. I must admit, I haven't really got my head around the numbers. I think the concept's good. Also, the format, you're going to bring it forward to a public meeting. There's going to be lots of time to tweak the numbers. I think if the mayor has some issues that I'm sure they can be raised. I'm sure we all will have issues, and I'm sure you're flexible if there has to be some changes to it. But the idea is, and I just wanted to comment on the idea that we only want to control 200 feet from the water. You got to remember, along Peninsula Road, those big places are being built beyond the 200 feet, but they're right on the road. So I think, if I understand the gist of this, you're not trying to control square footage. You're trying to control square footage that could be considered habitable. Is that my understanding? And I just wanted to, in other words, I maybe missed that. If someone wants to build a 3-car garage that's not attached to his building, I didn't think we were trying to catch that unless there's a portion of it that could be habitable. I mean, not officially habitable, but called storage and then habitatized. So maybe you could just clarify that for me. But in general, I support it.
Mr. Sharp?
Through you, Chair Bridgman. Thank you for your question, Councillor Jaglowitz. I think what we're trying to do is ultimately control the number of larger accessory buildings that have the potential to be used illegally as habitable space. And we've suggested that the numerical number of 2 accessory buildings would be appropriate. We've suggested a combined ground floor area of 1,000 square feet. If what I'm hearing from Mayor Harding, perhaps we need to take a second look at that 1,000 square foot number and perhaps come up with some sort of threshold that would otherwise be appropriate if perhaps the buildings are located a greater distance from the water. So perhaps it's a matter of Mr. Pink and I and the team sitting down to have that discussion and coming up with perhaps a way to allow a combination of buildings, but if they're located, a greater distance from the high water mark, perhaps they could be larger than a combined ground floor area of 1,000 square feet. There's lots of options, and ultimately, that's the purpose of the discussion here today, is to run this past you at first glance and get your thoughts on it. So thank you.
Okay, Councillor Edwards.
Thank you very much. I'm in support of Councillor Bridgman, and that I think that we have to bring this out to the public. Maybe 1,000 feet isn't what we want, but let the public come out and actually decide some of this. So I don't have a problem with it going to the public. At Committee of Adjustment, we see a 2-story garage, and they want to wash them in the lower level, and a washroom upstairs, but it's only storage. So we've had them removed and things like that. Every time you put beds in, that's people sleeping in them, that's using the septic. And if they've only got approval, say for a 3-bedroom house, and it ends up being 6 or 7 bedrooms, it puts a strain on the septic. So I think we should let the public come out. That's what the official plan is for. Bring this out and see what the public say. And that we're just here to to support what the public want, and that as far as making rules and that, if it's a 500 square feet, 1,000 or 1,500, I don't care, as long as we can put some teeth in it, that we can stop the 2 or 3% that always seem to be bending the rules. And that, as far as I'm concerned, a second story in a garage, they don't need an 8-foot ceiling. They can put 6'9" or something like that. So it's just used for storage and then that it gets the height down and everything else like that. Again, let's see what the public want, because I'd like to listen to what they have to say, and I can bring this out to the public at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Mazan.
Thank you, and through you. This has been a really long day. So I'm going to start off with thanking Mr. Sharp. I thought this report, to me anyways, what it's done is it's made me think. And I think that was the intent, is you've heard or you've observed or you've seen that this is an issue or an emerging issue and you're bringing it forward. So to me, what I'm having a problem with, I'm not going to lie, it's now 4 o'clock and this has just been a day. I'm trying to absorb numbers. I'm trying to understand the implications of some of these things. And so I'm not even sure what the next step should really be. So I'm going to put that aside. What I would like to say is maybe like Chair Bridgman was saying, the concern I've seen or witnessed is when a building has been put in on one of the 3 big lakes and it's of a size and scale now that is something that people are having a strong reaction to. And then a 2-story boathouse is also put in there. So all of a sudden the built form, that cumulative impact of that built form is already significant. Then the owner takes over and they then put it in a garage. And in that garage is this habitable space. So now all of a sudden you've got this 2-story boathouse with a habitable space. You've got this large cottage. And then in behind it, you have a garage, which I think the problem that you're addressing is this, right? That cumulative impact of that entire built form is significant. So as I've been listening to you, and I'm thinking of real life examples, things people have brought forward to me as a point of concern, I'm now trying to look at what you're suggesting and say, is this solving that problem? And honestly, I don't even feel equipped right now. My brain has stopped working, I think, to be able to say yes or no, and should we go, maybe it is going out to the public at this point to get that feedback, or does it mean we wait for another month? I don't know. But I do want to end off my comment to say, I thought your report has done what it was supposed to do, which is you've listened to us, you've heard a concern, and now I'm looking at it and you're making me think. And so I just wanted to say thank you. I don't have anything else to add at this point.
Thank you, Councillor Mazan. Councillor Roberts.
Thank you. I'm echoing what Councillor Mazan was said. I'm just about brain dead. I read this in detail at 6 o'clock this morning. And at the time I had all kinds of thoughts. I think this has got to be part of the official plan. I think we need a policy direction that says how we're going to handle accessory buildings. I know that during the official plan, some of the ideas was we're going to talk about site disturbance. We're going to talk about building beyond the 200 feet. So that's where I think it belongs, and we do the public meeting through the official plan. I just have one question for you, Bryce. On page, I can't remember from this morning, just a second. On page 343, you said loopholes. When I read down through that thing, I saw no loopholes. I just saw rules or policies that are not being, that we cannot enforce. I didn't see any loopholes. I just see people saying the loophole is we're going to do this, and then when everyone's gone, we're going to do that and do whatever we want. So this is all about enforcement, not adding more rules. I think we need more. Yes, I think what you suggested, we need to do that, but we have to put teeth. And we've been saying it for 3 years now, and we got 1 year approximately left. This council needs to beef up enforcement. We took steps to get more bylaw officers, but we really need to think outside the box, as Councillor Bridgman was saying, and Councillor Edwards and saying, okay, you have your second floor at 6 feet and the windows have got to be on the top of the ceiling. We got to start putting that kind of stuff in. But then they'll just cut them away anyways. But it's really about enforcement. And this is what it all comes down to. And we've been saying it for a long time. So those are my thoughts on it.
Mr. Sharp?
Through you, Chair Bridgman, and thank you for your comments, Councillor Roberts. I appreciate that, and Councillor Mazan as well. Just in regard to Councillor Roberts' comment, I would just respond by saying that loophole might have not have been the best expression, but at the same time, I think where my thinking may have lied was the fact that if based on the report, we've been pretty clear that this situation and the illegal habitable use of storage or accessory buildings is very, very, very difficult to enforce. And I think that that awareness is out there amongst the public. We do our best, but again, we're just looking to tighten things up to help us with that. So that's the overall intent here. Thank you.
Mayor Harding?
Thank you. And let me just to apologize. There's no disrespect to staff when I talked about a sledgehammer killing a fly. I understand what we're trying to do. I guess the question is, we really do need to understand what we're trying to do at the end of the day. Is it control habitable space? All we're saying here is now I'm allowed 2 500 square foot bedrooms or 2 500 square foot accessory buildings. So each of them now gets a bed. So I'm only allowing 2 more because I'm not going to police it that much more. We still potentially have the same structure, just at the same potential issues at a lesser scale of this. Councillor Edwards' perspective, every bedroom, theoretically is more people using a washroom. Well, maybe we should redo our bylaws, because I've seen building plans where there are 6 bunk beds or 8 bunk beds in the kids' room. Should that be 8 bedrooms considered then, because there's 8 or 10 kids staying there? Let's look at, is it appropriately sized for the septic or not? The other thing I just want to make sure we understand as council, we make these changes and we say, this is your house and this is your boathouse and this is whatever. But there are some people who have some massive 50-acre properties. And the idea here is you only get the extra 1,000 square feet on 50 acres. I think that itself might be inappropriate. And again, if I have the space and I'm going to a lot coverage of 3%, we've had developments, large developments, laying on Fairlands Island, not Fairlands Island, but the island, there's only one place. There was literally, there's 2 boathouses with living accommodations above and below, but because it's such a large property, it's spread out. And I guess, is it appropriate? My neighbor 35 years ago, 40 years ago, decked in a slip of their boathouse so their kids had a place to play ping pong. Is that wrong? Is that right? And maybe I want to build a 300 square foot little recreation room, no beds, no anything, but that I can get kids inside in a rainy day or do something. Or maybe it's a TV room, or maybe, again, I've been to properties where there's a golf simulator on the property and I want to build that special room. Why? Because I can. So I'm most concerned about lot coverage. And I do understand, again, more bedrooms, can they divide it? Can they sell it? I want to define a cabin or an accessory dwelling, and a dwelling specifically, because a bed in a bunkie cabin does not mean someone's coming up for the weekend. They're still eating and dining within the main portion of the cottage. But when it's got its own cooking and cleaning facilities, then potentially it could be rented out to somebody else or a back lot. And that, I think, is what we need to do. So I just want to make sure we define really the problem and that we're addressing the true problem as best we can. And I'm still not sure, even if it's only 2 buildings at 500 square feet, we are addressing the problem because we're still not able to enforce what's inside the buildings. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Mayor Harding. And yeah, I think don't look at the absolute numbers. This is discussion, right? So Mr. Snyder, I see you've popped in.
Thank you, Chair Bridgman. To address comments made by the mayor, From a building perspective, the concern does become, can the septic systems support the additional floor area that has been constructed as non-habitable space, but converted to habitable space? Whether council takes it under advisement and reviews the OP to allow the additional sleeping cabin or additional habitable space, that would address part of the concern and give us the ability to ensure that the septic systems are sized at application time to support that space and help to protect the water bodies and the environment that we all enjoy and love. Thank you.
Yeah, good point, Mr. Snyder. To Mayor Harding, do we say X number of buildings and we assume they all could be habitable and the septic system has to be built to that level? That would protect our water. And I actually think that's a really good idea. Sorry?
I agree with you. That should be factored into this whole thing. You know,
Yes.
whether it's habitable or not, or the non-habitable space counts for 50% habitable based on septic system.
I agree. Councillor Kelly.
Thank you, and through you, this is a terrific report, by the way, to Mr. Sharp. Thank you very much for this effort. You've sparked a great conversation and lots to think about. Obviously, one of the issues that concerns me is any sort of environmental impact that comes from making a change like this. And I can't help but wonder if we encourage more than one sleeping cabin or habitable space, we're going to be clearing more land in the overall, I think, than if we were just adding a bedroom or two to an existing cottage. We're going to be encouraging more parking if we have kind of something that's suitable for a second generation family, as opposed to sticking 14 grandkids in the bunk beds in the attic. And these are consequences. These have consequences. Making sure that the septic system can carry the anticipated increased load is important. So too is parking. So too is clearing and clearing trees and prepping the land for development. And I got to be honest with you, if I understood, I think Councillor Bridgman, it's been a long time since you spoke. If I understood you correctly and I recall what you said correctly, I hear more people worried about why these buildings are necessary rather than wishing they could add more to their property. So I'm not sure there's a problem. I wonder if we're really creating a problem to solve it, or whether there's a real problem that needs to be addressed, because I'm not hearing a ton of demand for stuff like this. That's it for me.
No, I am hearing complaint, and a lot of it is enforcement again. But the second thing is water and the environment, and two families on one piece of property, and that kind of thing. So, Councillor Kelly, your hand down. Councillor Mazan.
Thank you, and through you, just for, listening further to the discussion. I find it interesting because earlier today, one of the planners, one of the applications was talking about how he puts more weight on the waterfront than he does on the acreage. And yet part of our conversation right now is saying, well, maybe the acreage, permits further development rights. And so I'm just throwing that out there, that as I was listening, I often think about the septic. So I was glad to hear that came up, because truthfully, it's the amount of people that come, whether it's for short term over a weekend or for a longer period of time. I think oftentimes people don't understand the stress and duress a septic system that goes under. So I don't think I have a formed thought or opinion at this point, but I do think that needs to be considered. And quite honestly, if you have 1 acre, your size of septic, maybe this is a question for Mr. Snyder, you are going to be limited versus if you have 50 acres, simply by the sheer acreage, I would think, on how much you could actually put in. So again, I apologize. It's 4 o'clock. I'm not thinking straight. But I do think that this concept of what's more important, the acreage or the waterfront or both, and maybe we just have to really understand what problem it is that we're trying to solve here. So those are my thoughts. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to go to Councillor Hayes, and just before I do that, Mr. Sharp, are you getting enough feedback to fine tune your report, or I guess the question is, where do we go from here? Do we need to, what is our issue? That's the first thing we need to do. Mr. Pink, sorry, Councillor Hayes, maybe I'll let Councillor Hayes speak first. Councillor Hayes?
Yes, I was just going to mention that this was changes for 2014-14, regulating the use of accessory buildings in the waterfront area. I don't know many areas that have 50 acres that they're on the waterfront area. I do know one, but I don't think that most of our waterfront areas are not huge. They'd be under 5 acres or so. So I don't think we're looking at huge acreages. We're looking at trying to control an issue of a smaller size.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Pink?
Thank you, Chair. I think just to try to land or respond to the question that you just posed to Mr. Sharp, the impression I get, or I think the question that committee needs to resolve first, if the issue is truly just built form and controlling that, I think that's done aptly well through lot coverage. And if committee doesn't have a concern with multiple living spaces, whether they be golf simulators or rec rooms or bunkies, then I would suggest we largely park this initiative and take that up as part of the official plan review and massage our policies to allow those types of buildings. Alternatively, if council feels that property should be limited to one dwelling and one sleeping cabin per property, then as much as I agree with a few councillor sentiments that it is largely an enforcement issue, but as Mr. Sharp said, we're really unable to enforce it. It's extremely difficult. We're not permitted into people's buildings. So they show buildings that comply on paper, they obtain building permits, and there's very limited we can do after that to control what people do inside them. So if in the alternative, if committee wishes to strictly limit properties to one sleeping cabin per lot, then I think we can explore the report that's in front of you. Staff certainly happy to come back with revisions. As you said, if 1,000 square feet is not the right number, or 2 buildings are not the right number, we can continue to work on that or proceed to a public meeting. But I think those are 2 very divergent paths, and I just wanted to point that out. I see a lot of the discussion, I saw a lot of nodding of heads that it was more of a built form issue and not a concern with the number of living buildings, as long as the septic is sized for it. And we can make that clear through the official plan review and then change the zoning bylaw after that. So I think some clarity needs, or some decision needs to be made on that sort of initial question to steer staff in the right direction.
Thank you. Well, I'm going to put my 2 cents worth in here, because the more living quarters you have on a property, the more the Airbnb people are going to charge for these properties. What you're going to have is tons of people on these properties. And it's a huge, it's another huge issue for us. So I'm about limiting the habitable space on the property. So that is where I want to go with it. Maybe I can have a shaking, how many people are oriented? Well, I'm just trying to get a straw poll here for you guys. That would be the majority of the committee. So Mr. Pink, can we continue down this road then? And Mr. Sharp, I know you've got your pencil sharp there. It's really late in the day. Sorry, this has been so long. Okay, so would we wait for Mr. Sharp to come back to us with just trying to get a feel for where would you like to go with this, Mr. Sharp?
Well, if I'm seeing that it seems like the majority of committee would like to proceed with this in some way, shape, or form. So what we can do is proceed with the way that we've recommended it and proceed to a public meeting and bring forward the changes and see what the public has to say and go from there.
Okay, are we comfortable with that? I think we'll get a good feedback from all of it, and if we can make it clear that numbers aren't carved in stone at this point, but we want a general feeling. I think that will help mitigate some of the pushback in terms of it's only this or that. If that's possible, Mr. Sharp, to sort of say that nothing's set in stone at this point. We're just looking for feedback.
I would look to Mr. Pink to provide me with a bit of direction in that regard. In this particular instance, I don't know if we'd be looking to bring forward a specific draft bylaw for consideration. I believe we may be, but Mr. Pink, if you could step in and provide some direction, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Mr. Pink.
I think thank you through the chair. Certainly, whether a bylaw is included in the public meeting or not, certainly most of the public would need to see the details to accurately comment on it. But whether it's included or not, I think there's certainly going to be a clear direction to the community that council is exploring this issue and wishes to regulate it. But what I would point out is dissimilar to sometimes the planning applications like we had this morning. Staff's intent certainly will be just to receive that input. I wouldn't expect any type of decisions at the public meeting. We would hear from the community and then return to a future planning committee meeting to dissect those public input and consider next steps, whether that be drastic changes or overhaul or minor tweaks. We can cross that bridge at that time.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Roberts.
I'm so sorry, through you, Madam Chair. Would that public meeting be as part of the official plan, or would it be another separate public meeting?
At the moment, we're talking about a public meeting to change bylaws, I believe. Yes. So it would be another separate public meeting. Councillor Zavitz.
Well, thank you. And of course, through you, I think the only thing, and I guess perhaps to both Bryce and David, you know, so living here and having 5 bedrooms and having 3 bathrooms, and 4 kids with kids, they come in the summertime. You know, they don't, you know, pre-post COVID, they'll be here when they're here, but then for 10 months, 9 months, you know, my wife and I live here alone. So the stress and strain on the septic, et cetera, I just, you know, I kind of wonder if when we do this kind of report, we do go to the public, it speaks, you know, we're really hard on Airbnb, as I am, but, you know, here that's a bad example, but, you know, we have what, 9 months of homes that are more than capable mechanically. My system can absorb the pressure of 6 extra people for 3 long weekends or even a week of time. I never hear that sensitized into the equations. I mean, it's such an all or nothing thing. 365 days a year, 4 bathrooms, 7 bedrooms. It's like there's 38 people in every house. That's not the case. And I don't know, how do we sensitize the math? Maybe we can't. But it does mess me up when I think of 9 months of 2 people in a large home. And then, anyway, you know where I'm going with that.
I don't think I have anywhere to direct that, actually. Councillor Kelly? Oh, and maybe Mr. Snyder. Mr. Snyder?
Thank you, Chair Bridgman. And through you. Yes, that is the common, I don't want to say misconception, but the fact is that those peak times where you have occupancy greater than that, which the septic can support, the flows are increased. People showering, cooking, using facilities. And when those flows are increased, the treatment of the effluent isn't achieved at the same rate. As well, the flows to the bed are increased, which causes the potential for blowouts and system failures. So hopefully that addresses the question.
Well, it does, if I might, perhaps that's an educational piece that we need to communicate in a much better form.
Elsewhere. Fair enough.
Okay, Councillor Kelly.
I was probably similar to what was just said, going to tell Councillor Zavitz that I don't think septic capacity is something that lends itself to averaging. You gotta go with the peak flow.
That was good, especially at 4:20. Okay. Okay. All right. So I think you have enough input here, Mr. Sharp, do you? Mr. Oh, the,
Yes.
okay,
Yes, I
my
believe
resolution,
we
see,
do.
it's 4:20, sorry. Okay, moved by Councillor Roberts, seconded by Councillor Zavitz. Be it resolved that Planning Committee recommend to Council that staff be directed to circulate updates to comprehensive zoning bylaw 2014-14 as described in the June 17th, 2021 staff report for a public meeting in accordance with Planning Act requirements. Okay, all those in favor? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I think that's 7, Madam Clerk. 5, 6, 8. Oh, 8, right. No, 7. Jagowitz isn't there. Councillor Jagowitz isn't there. I think it's 7 because I think Mayor Harding is going to vote against this.
No, I'm sorry. 8 will be there.
Yeah, it's okay.
Everybody's moving on the screen.
It's a long day. Okay, are those opposed? So you can raise your hand there. Okay. Okay, thank you. And I believe that our last item here is bylaw enforcement in the township.
I don't.
Oh. Okay. Well, we'll come to that in a minute. About what? Sorry.
Grant application. Signed off.
Okay. Okay. All right. So bylaw enforcement in the township. Is this our new bylaw chief who is going to be directing us? There he is, Mr. Kennedy. Welcome. Please take the floor.
Thank you. Through the chair. This wasn't one of my suggestions. I believe it was Councillor Edwards that wanted to bring this up. So I may pass it over to him in regards. I don't recall if it was Councillor Edwards or not. But one of the councillors did bring it up, or it might have been Councillor Roberts. I'm not too sure.
Okay, who wanted this on here? Councillor Roberts?
Through you, Madam Chair, I didn't put anything on. I did express concerns and hope and dreams that with the new bylaw chief, that we can really make inroads on this, but I didn't put anything on the agenda.
Okay, so Mr. Kennedy, we just, like you to look after all of it. So,
just get it done.
Just which. Mr. Pink, is there anything else that, I guess if nobody put it on, then.
Councillor Roberts asked for service.
Oh, okay. So that's that Councillor Roberts, it comes to this committee. I think you asked for it on another committee. Anyway.
Councillor Mazan has her hand up.
Oh, Councillor Mazan. I lost Councillor Mazan.
That's because it's a good thing. I just said the most spectacular thing. I have really nothing else to add other than I wanted to welcome you to the group. And I just wanted to say thus far, I've had a few times when I've had questions and your response has been quick, efficient, and you've got my attention. So just take that attitude out into our communities, please. And I'm sure you'll have everybody's attention pretty quickly.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Mazan. Director Pink.
Thank you, Chair. Just in response maybe to remind Councillor Roberts, it did send a request in to discuss, I believe it was bylaw enforcement and general fines and wishing to increase those. I think you made the request to the clerk. You may have preferred that it gone on a general finance, so we were not discussing it at 4:30. But it is unfortunately not unfortunately, I meant that the wrong way, but it is a Development Services and Environmental Sustainability Division, or bylaw enforcement is a matter under Development Services. So we have placed it on this agenda. I don't know if you wish to introduce that any further. Mr. Kennedy is here and myself to facilitate the discussion and answer any questions that can be.
I certainly do wish to discuss this. I remember it now. I wanted in general finance. We went there because it falls under your bailiwick. I would like to hold that off till the next meeting because the brains are just at the end. At least mine is. I don't want everyone else's, and I see my buddy Councillor Edwards just fading away. So let's postpone it.
So can we just defer this to the next agenda, Mr. Sharp, whoever puts it together? Oh, that was negative thinking. Okay, so we're going to move that to the next agenda, and I believe we may have new business. Anyone have new business? Mayor Harding.
Thank you very much. And the clerk has a potential resolution. I know Director Becking's just coming into the waiting room or into the meeting at this particular time as well. Just to introduce very quickly, we would provide potentially tentative approval. Swift River has come to us with a proposal to install electric vehicle chargers. Might be of interest to Councillor Jagowitz going forward in Bala. And they're going to pay, they've got an application to the government to be able to get some of the chargers, but they would be paying for all the hydro, all the installation, any of the costs associated, but they would be available to the public in Bala. And the clerk has a resolution for us to just say that we would endorse this. I believe it is going in, I'm not sure, it says which parking lot right now. I don't think it's the Shield parking lot. I think it's Don's Bakery parking lot. Portage parking lot. And anyway, I certainly support it. I think it's good for Bala to put a couple of electric vehicle chargers in there. So we've got it for the council.
Sounds terrific. I believe it's just being printed off now, so I don't have it in front of me. I can't imagine anybody's going to say no to that either. It sounds great.
And I don't know.
Oh, yeah,
And the CAO was there to speak.
Oh, okay. Mr. Hammond, would you like to speak?
Thanks, Madam Chair. I believe Mr. Becking is on the line if anybody has any sort of technical questions. I do believe it's the Portage lot that is being looked at. Again, further to Mayor Harding's comments, we were approached about a partnership opportunity quite recently. This is an application for funding to the federal government. Simply what we would be doing at this time is providing a statement of support or signing off on a letter of support for the application. Because we're talking about physical structures, there would need to be a license agreement. So the matter would come back to council for sort of more formal ratification and consideration for those pieces of equipment to be installed on our property. And to the mayor's point, it's our understanding that all of the funding related to the installation and ongoing payment for electricity will be borne by Swift River. I'm not sure if Mr. Becking is on or if you wish to add anything further, but I just thought I'd add that additional clarification for you this afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't see Mr. Becking, and I'm not sure we need him actually. So I'm going to read this first motion because this has come on at this point. We need a 2/3 vote on it. So whereas section 3.5.1.6 of Township Council Procedural Bylaw 2019-079 provides that any motion may be introduced without notice of the Planning Committee without debate, dispenses with notice by a 2/3 vote. Now therefore be it resolved that Township Council hereby consents to the consideration and vote on a new motion with respect to the SREL electric vehicle charging station support resolution without notice. All in favor? I believe we have that, Madam Clerk. Okay, thank you. Moved by Mayor Harding, seconded by Councillor Roberts. Whereas Swift River Energy Limited SREL proposes to install 2 electric vehicle charging stations in the Bala community, and whereas SREL in consultation with township staff have tentatively identified the township portion of the Portage Landing parking lot located on District Road 169 as the preferred location for the installation, And whereas SREL proposes to apply to the federal government for financial assistance under the Zero Emissions Vehicle Infrastructure Program, for which township support is required, now therefore be it resolved that the Planning Committee on behalf of Township Council agree in principle to the proposed installation subject to confirmation by Township Council, and that the Director of Public Works be authorized to sign on behalf of the township such documents as are necessary to support the SREL application under the program. Any discussion? All in favor? Oh, wait a minute. Councillor Kelly, do you have are you just anxious?
I'm never anxious. Thank you. I know, but I have a real quick question, and I just don't know the answer. Do all of these things have the same charging ports, or do you have to, like, in other words, when we put one in there, does that mean everybody's car can plug into it, or is it only for specific? Is it like BlackBerry and Apple and no?
I don't have one. I don't, what's the, and Councillor Edwards saying there are different charging stations for different cars?
That is my understanding, and that there's, I believe there's at least 2 separate systems now. And that, so.
And does that matter to us when we approve putting in a charging station, that they may only be able to charge LADAs? I just don't know.
Only Councillor Jagovich would complain at this point.
He's the expert.
I would venture to say that any charging stations up here are a good thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's the beginning. So, all right. So, all in favor? I believe that's unanimous. Okay, thank you. Any other new business? Okay, then I'm going to do a motion to adjourn. Oh, Councillor Edwards?
Yes, I thought there was 2 information items, and that was from, and that was at Lanark Highlands on planning times. I think we should respond to that, and also the town of Halton Hills elimination of LPAT. And I would support both of those motions.
I asked about the elimination of LPAT earlier. Sorry, I missed that. Okay, so do we have support for both of those? How do we do this, Madam Clerk? And we have motions at the council meeting for these 2? Can we direct you for motions? Yeah.
And they can go straight to council. That would be fine.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Is everybody in favor of that?
Yeah.
Okay. We good? Okay. Thank you. Thank you for that. Okay, so I have a motion to adjourn. I really apologize for the length of time. I see that our clerk has added AM onto this motion when I was laughing that we didn't even have an AM on it. I hope we get to use it again sometime. Moved by Councillor Hayes, seconded by Councillor Roberts. Be it resolved that Planning Committee meeting adjourn at 4:33 p.m. and the next regular Planning Committee meeting be held on Thursday, July 15th, 2021 at 9 a.m. All in favor? Carried. Okay, everybody.
I think we could submit this to Guinness Book of Records for the longest planning meeting.
I'm not sure I want that, actually, Councillor Edwards. Okay, everybody have a really good weekend.
Yeah,
Thank
great,
you.
thanks.
Right,
Bye.
yeah, bye-bye.